So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth and life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth and life so you can give more all of it away to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. Each and every episode, we're joined by the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires or billionaires, and they share their secrets, insights, and wisdom with us so we can all scale up and make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. But before we go there, we're also streaming here on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. So we appreciate all of the listeners out there as well. Excited about our next guest. He's out of the Atlanta area, and he's a president and he's a wealth advisor. He's the author of The Money and Meaning Journey. He's a CFP, financial advisor, financial planner, investment management. And he is going to help us today to help us get clarity, financial confidence, and some joy, especially as you go to exit or retire or move to the next season, next chapter of your life. He brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Please welcome to the show with me, Jeff Bernier. Jeff, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, maybe tell us a little bit more about your story and your current focus.
Yeah, so my name is Jeff Bernier again. I'm the founder and president of a wealth management company here in the northern suburbs of Atlanta, Alpharetta, Georgia, for those of you that know the Atlanta area. And, I'm passionate about helping people get clear about what matters, especially my hero is a mid to late career professional who is strategizing what's next. And I went through a process myself when I turned 50 that we can talk about if you have interest, that really hit me like a ton of bricks. And that was a few years ago, but it just convinced me that I wanted to transform the way we were serving our clients so that we could serve them in a more holistic way in terms of, what matters most, not just about accumulating bigger net worth.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into that. So what's the number one secret to that you went through to learn how to navigate and or simplify the complexities of financial decisions or just planning?
Well, I think, if we back up for a moment, just think about this hero. We've got a lot of people who are late in their careers, and so much of their identity is tied up into what they do. And so we have these uniforms, and we have years and years of pats on the back and attaboys for performance. And we get to a certain point in life, and many of us get to a point, and just it's kind of like that movie that Jack Nicholson was in many years ago, where he says, "Is this all there is?" And we start losing the passion for the work that we're doing. And so we have to sort of go to the locker room and kind of figure out what's next. And so what happens oftentimes is they'll transition to retirement or into Act Two, as I call it in my book, without really being clear on their why and what matters. And so what often happens is we move into this next phase of life, and we treat Act Two like we did Act One, and we just get really busy and say yes to everything. And so I think the mistake we make is you've really got to go to the woods and kind of figure out what matters before you even start doing the tactical planning around, the three important concepts that you have to evaluate as you prepare for this.
I couldn't agree with you more. I went through maybe a similar process with some coaching over the last year with the 100X program with a guy named Lloyd Reeb, and he talked about getting clear, getting unstuck, and getting going. And the concept was getting really clear on your personal life mission statement, your family mission, vision, values, getting unstuck in those areas that are holding you back, and then get going on that next journey or that next part of your journey. And then, of course, it includes the business, it includes the work, and it includes those things. That's a part of it. But really, it's getting really clear on, like you're saying, like your why. And so I find it's typically three major things: it's your personal life, right? Your personal finance, and then like the business aspect, especially for the entrepreneur. And most folks are so tied to their business as their identity that it may have in the back burner or have neglected their, what is after the business, because I'm so tied to this, and that becomes the void if you just walk away so soon. And I think it's such a challenge for entrepreneurs, for business owners, for anyone who's working such long decades of their time and their energy. So what helped you to get really clear, Jeff? What was the maybe the process? Could walk us a little more through that?
Well, Lloyd Reeb and the Halftime Institute is really what got me excited about doing this type of work professionally for our clients. So I read the book Halftime, Bob Buford's classic book, when I was in my 30s, and it said nothing at all to me in my 30s. I was in the wrong season for the book. It was interesting, but it said nothing to me. And so I reread it when I turned 50, about 13 years ago, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So in 2013, I spent about 2 years going through the Halftime Institute, and obviously a lot of Lloyd Reeb's material and his coaching is all over that organization. And it helped me figure out those three things that you talk about: your core, what is your why, what brings you to your knees, what do you care about, and you really got to address that first. And I think for all of us, it's also helpful to figure out what you're good at, what you love to do and what you're good at, what Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach calls unique ability. So the first thing that Lloyd Reeb and the people at Halftime, and the thing that I try to do with our clients, is let's just get really clear on the core, like what truly, who are you, what matters. There's a great quote that says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do that, because the world needs more people that have come alive. So question number one is, what makes your heart come alive? And that's not really a financial planning question, but it is an existential question. And then the second part is you do have to create the capacity. So how do you create the margin, the time margin, the energy, the resources, so that you can go do what you're called to do? And it's really not an affluence thing necessarily. It's more an availability thing. Like, can I create the margin? So that's sort of the second circle. And then the third one, and this is where I think business owners have the hardest time, and me as an entrepreneur have the hardest time, and that is context. Where am I going to apply this wisdom that I've accumulated? How am I going to apply it in service to the world, and that brings me joy? Because that's really what this is about. I mean, it's about how do you create value for others and meaning for yourself. Because I think we're in a Arthur Brooks has written a great book just recently about finding your meaning, and it's really he says, and I don't disagree, that we have sort of a meaning crisis in this country because we're so action oriented, and because of technology and social media and the comparison game, it's become very difficult for us to ask these bigger questions. And so the third part again is the context. And what I found, and this is something else they found at the Halftime Institute, is many of my clients and your clients and people that are probably listening to this show who are strategizing Act Two, oftentimes the context is where you are today. It does not necessarily have to change. You just do it a different way.
This is awesome, Jeff. And by the way, speaking with Jeff Bernier, you can spell Bernier. You can learn more about it. Go to tandemgrowth.com, tandemgrowth.com. You know what the worst thing to do is when you're selling a business? Paying huge capital gains taxes. In fact, they're about 20 to 50% of the sale. And if your client is selling, whether you're a business broker, M&A advisor, financial advisor, they have a large capital gains tax problem. And guess what? We have a solution. We build capital gains tax solutions for sellers of highly appreciated assets, including real estate, including businesses and other assets. And we want to encourage you to take action today to learn about what solutions are available. So think about a business, think about real estate, think about other assets that have at least $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain, and the sale is going to result in 20 to 50% in tax. So what can you do? Well, you can build a capital gains tax solution with our team. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com or click on the link below to get started. Plan your retirement, grow together, but more than just a financial advisor, Jeff's going to help you get real clear with your purpose and your why, and which is to me the heart of great planning, great retirement planning, great exit planning. And I have a success formula that I've kind of picked up over the years, and a little bit of combination of what Lloyd and Halftime teaches, and it's your unique gift, right? Success equals your unique God-given talent and gift that He's given you that really you do really well. It's natural, but you've honed that, and you not just that that, but you've maximized that potential of that. So so your unique gift times maximizing the potential of that, growing in that, becoming world-class, heaven-class with that, times impacting as many people as you possibly can, right? And then the big overarching theme is, knowing that this is for a bigger purpose than just your lifetime or just yourself, right?
Right.
That equals success, right? If you look back and say, hey, I had my unique gift, I identified it, I stepped into my calling, I stepped into my purpose. I didn't just do that, but I maximized that gift. I did everything I possibly could, my effort to maximize it. I did it to make a big impact as many people as I could. And I knew that there was a bigger purpose for why I was on this earth for this period of time. That equals success. To me, if you live that life, you can say you lived a successful life. Any thoughts on that, Jeff?
No, I love it. It reminds me again a lot of what Arthur Brooks writes about this crisis of meaning, because he believes to have meaning you need three things. You've got to have coherence, which is you've got to believe you're here for a reason. For many of us, it's our spiritual grounding and our faith. So you got to have coherence. You've got to have purpose. And purpose is a challenging one for some of us, but it doesn't have to be some big grandiose purpose, but you do have to have a reason to get up every day. And the third one is significance. And of course, that's what Halftime talks a lot about, is how do you go from success to significance? And so Arthur Brooks is coherence, purpose, and significance. And significance basically answers the question, if you died tonight, would at least one person believe that you made an impact, or one person is going to miss you, and that coherence is you believe that we're all here for a reason. Number two, you've got something to get you up every day to again apply your gifts that you just talked about. And then thirdly, are you creating value for others? And and I don't even like, we talk about retirement in all of our marketing and branding, because that's what people search on. They search on retirement. But I don't even like the phrase retirement. I mean, retirement's what we do to old airplanes. We put them out to pasture or to ships. So I like Mitch Anthony, who was a consultant to our industry. He had a great definition for work, and his definition for work was anything that provides value to others and meaning for me. Anything that provides value for others and meaning for me is how he defined work. And so by that definition, I think I hope to be working forever. I hope to be creating value for other people and have, and get meaning from it. the compensation is a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you choose to do it for compensation, or you do things for compensation, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, Daniel Lapin is a uh, Jewish rabbi, and he has a
Mm-hmm.
podcast and written a bunch of books about um, the old Torah's messages about money.
Mm-hmm.
And so compensation is fine. As a matter of fact, he says that, he calls them certificates of appreciation. So
Mm-hmm.
you could apply your gift and be financially rewarded from it. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is, does it give you meaning, and is it creating value for others? And again, I think the money will come. So I think your success definition is so in line with everything that I've learned from people that I respect, in trying to figure out, okay, what equals a good life,
Mm-hmm.
and those elements are so much a part of that.
Excellent. Yeah. And yeah, as a believer myself and as a Christian, it's interesting if you study the Bible and the Gospels and what Jesus says, he's consistently saying, is he doing the work that he was called to do, that the Father's appointed for him to do, the specific work, right? And there's one scene that we were just studying in Matthew last week at church, and it was the scene where the mom and the brothers maybe come to see Jesus, right? And like he's in, I don't know, a house or something, and he's crowded, and they're like, hey, your mom and maybe his sister too, your mom, your brother and sister, they're out there, like, as if, and he's like, and he goes like, look, my mom and, my brothers and my sisters are those who do the will, basically, of the Father, right? Do the will of God. And it's powerful, right? To think about like that, God, God in flesh, Jesus, his unique work that was the most important thing, right? That's success, right? Like to do that. And it wasn't going to be, distracted or pulled away from other things. And so I have to believe, and I think the Bible says it too in Ephesians, that like we have a unique purpose that was prepared for us before the creation of the world. I mean, just to think about that God cares so much how intentional he was with each of us to give us our gifts, to give us the time that we were born, the place that we were born, the family we were born into, the people that we get to serve. Like, it's a divine calling, right? So our calling, I've heard Tim Tebow say this, is both divine and urgent, right? It's got to have both. And it's something that I think each of us, we don't want to take for granted, because we don't want to look back and say, oh, I didn't live my calling. I didn't discover my purpose. I didn't take the action. I didn't live with urgency and intentionality. That's part of why, I love the Halftime book and anything Lloyd Reed or Bob Buford. And it's we all need that in our life. We all need a Lloyd Reed in our life to help us think and take action on these things. Any last thoughts on that before we move to the next subject?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is that, when you look at those three circles, that, the core, capacity, and context, we're in the capacity business. Our job is to try to help our clients create the capacity so they can create clarity and confidence, so they can financial confidence, so they can go do what they're called to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that, as I mentioned, our hero today, who is approaching this next act, again, it can be very difficult, because the world tells you a whole different set of rules that maybe we ought to think a little differently.
100%. I'm speaking with Mr. Jeff Briner, everybody, and you can find tandemgrowth.com, tandemgrowth.com. Okay, let's keep going here. So what's the next? And by the way, let's also plug the book here. You have the book that you released and the podcast, and talk about those who are working with you, and then we'll geek out a little bit here on some capital gains tax exit planning.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So again, we have a wealth management firm here in Atlanta, and we serve mid to late career professionals who have probably had some measure of worldly success, and they're trying to figure out what's next. And we want to help them get their actions and resources in alignment with what matters. So we spend time up front figuring out what matters, and then we do really high-level technical wealth management planning, including investment management, in what I call an evidence-based approach. Because what I found is, for my typical client, life is already really complex, and the more you feel like you've got to watch CNBC or Fox Business and study markets, and we have people who are oftentimes very successful and are well funded, but they can't sleep at night because they're worried about the next hurricane blowing up the beach house. So we don't want that. We want our clients to have true freedom to go be all they were called to be. So that's what we're about.
Perfect.
And the Money Meaning Journey is a book that I wrote that really takes the first third of the book is about some of these spiritual concepts around figuring out who you are and what you were made for. The middle part of the book is a mini halftime institute. I mean, it's 3 chapters that go through helping you uncover your core capacity and context. And then the third of the book is it's a very quick summary of the major wealth management questions to be answered.
Amazing. I love it. I love how practical it is, and I love you weaving it all into what you're doing and to help the heroes that you're serving. So, okay, great. Let's move into some capital gains tax exit planning. So, before we had the call, I was talking about, I think you'd be great for a group that I'm working with. It's called SEPA, right? And becoming a certified exit planning advisor. And basically, like all of these things we're talking about, and having a framework and practical, and then those that you could share ideas. But I'm wondering, like, for those who've exited, the business owners clients that you had served, or real estate owners, what's been the biggest frustration when it comes to estate tax planning or capital gains tax planning? And then I'm going to provide kind of what we do and just kind of bounce ideas off.
Yeah, that would be great. And, and just full disclosure here too is, a lot of the people that I serve are actually higher earning corporate executive types. Mm-hmm. So we're dealing a lot more with equity-based compensation, mm-hmm. stock options, restricted shares, mm-hmm. and concentrated wealth. Because I'm here in Atlanta, Home Depot, Coca-Cola, UPS, mm-hmm. guys like that. But the themes are the same. And so probably the most important theme to me is risk management, because once you've won the game, you don't need to keep playing the same game you were playing that got you here. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't want the tax tail to wag the dog mm-hmm. when you've got to manage the risk. So it's really, to me, once you've won the game, you really need to manage the risk.
Spot on.
Yeah, because if in a private business, if you own shares in the new private business that bought you, or even a publicly traded company, mm-hmm. and you don't create liquidity, you still have shares in that business, and now you have shares in a business you don't control anymore. Mm-hmm. So it can be even scarier. But losing 50% of the value fairly quickly is a whole lot worse than a capital gain. So, I think.
So what if you could have both, Jeff? So I'm going to present to you a couple solutions here. It works for public stock, private stock. In fact, we're working with the NVIDIA, like one of the team members has been around for like 10 plus years with them, and they have lots of stock that's increased in tremendous value, and it's a large exit that's coming up. And so we build an irrevocable trust, particularly for public stock, that you can exit into in exchange for basically like an annuity contract. Okay. And once the funds are there, it can be diversified into whatever you want. Right. So into a balanced portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and whatever you want, plus private equity, plus private credit, plus your own deals. And we think it's the best kept secret for capital gains tax exit plan that most advisors have never heard of. And so it's worked for Netflix folks who exited Netflix stock. We've done it for Bitcoin. We're the first to ever do it for Bitcoin. But you can sell and do it just exactly that. You can diversify without having to suffer the tax consequence right away. Have the liquidity, so it works for business sales, works for real estate sales. 80 to 90% of most business owners have 80 to 90% of their wealth tied into that one single business.
Correct.
And so the ability to exit that business and the wealth itself be tax deferred and then diversified with liquidity and debt pay down and pay off is tremendous. The second thing is the estate tax, which most people are not necessarily prepared for or have a great solution for. As a reminder, the stepped-up basis hasn't solved for the estate tax. 30 million married is the exemption, 15 million single, which is the highest it's been in a long time. It could stay or go back to other amounts when new administrations come in. But the key is eliminating the estate tax. And there's a saying that we say here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions: you can have it outside the taxable estate, or you can have a stepped up basis, but you can't have both.
Right.
So what we do is we say, without any charity, life insurance, or gifting required, we build irrevocable trust to sell to and have the kids be the beneficiary of, and the remainder of what's left in there after the parents passes estate tax free and capital gains tax free. Parents will pay tax over their lifetime as they receive payments, so that you got to kind of figure that out as well. But that, to me, is having what's called a tax flow mindset, not just a cash flow retirement mindset. Right. It's looking at these in tandem and figuring out ways to combine, sequence, and in combination multiple strategies and team members to help with this complex world that we're in for wealth and estate planning.
Yeah. So what is the minimum size of a transaction where that makes sense?
We find about $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain is the minimum. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Lower than I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, about $1 million. Now, if you had one at 500, another at 500, a real estate sale and a stock that we can combine into one trust, we can look at that. But typically, $1 million and $1 million is the minimum. Although we just did, a $70 million transaction out of Connecticut. We did a $4.5 million CPA firm. We did a car dealership, a couple million a couple months ago. So it's across the country. Our average is probably 3 to 5 right at this point. But the larger the tax bill and the higher tax states, like the New Jerseys or the California or the New Yorks or the Minnesotas, the Oregons, the Illinois, these states tend to have larger challenges for taxes, and so we bring value there for the minimum. So
interesting.
That being said, we're running out of time. You ready for the lightning round?
Yes, sir.
All right. Knowing what you know now, Jeff, if you go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget? Make sure to tell yourself to do.
If I went back to my 20-year-old self,
yeah,
study statistics and math a little more. Pay a little bit more attention to the math.
Very good. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
Yeah, I think I'm curious about how to have a bigger impact. Like, what can I do to have a bigger impact?
Love it. Number one AI tool that you're using?
Probably right now, some combination of just Perplexity for research, but Zox is a note-taking task management tool that's specific to the wealth management space that's been a game changer for us.
Fantastic. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Leadership quote that I try to live by.
Or theme. It can be a theme too.
Yeah, I think it's about probably the quote I used earlier. Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do that.
I love it.
Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive.
That's beautiful.
Just getting honed in on.
Fantastic. And our last question, I'll wrap it up. After all your success, helping all the families you've helped, Jeff, how do you best keep a mindset of stewardship over ownership?
Well, I just know God owns it all. So I learned a long time ago. I saw for three things professionally. I saw for joy, freedom, and stewardship. And so, we're in an industry where, we get a call up, a day with someone wanting to buy the firm. And at the end of the day, I have joy now. I'm trying to be a good steward of what I've been blessed with. And then thirdly, I already have a lot of freedom. So I don't know why I'd want to be an employee of another organization at this point.
Amen and amen. Hey, Jeff, this has been awesome. Honestly, you dropped tons of wisdom, tons of meaning, and tons of purpose. So much more than I think our audience was prepared for, which has been fantastic. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts God's giving you to bring more joy, more freedom, more stewardship for families that are having large exits or having retirements and really trying to steward their wealth and their family in a great way. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Probably the easiest place is just the corporate website, tandemgrowth.com, and you can put a button there and schedule an introductory chat, or just subscribe to our resources, whichever is better for you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I also want to thank all of our listeners or viewers for being a part of the Bill It to Billions and Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. We're streaming on both YouTube channels and both podcasts. And we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more all the way to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. My name is Brett Swarts. I encourage you to take action today, especially if you have a large exit coming up, at least $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain of business, Bitcoin, stock, real estate, and you're looking to defer some cap gains tax, maybe eliminate some estate tax, but you don't quite know how to navigate the forced 1031 exchanges or how to navigate these different strategies. We have an amazing strategy we want to share with you that could really bring you more joy, more freedom, more stewardship. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. I'm going to start using that too, by the way, Jeff. I think those are good three tandems. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Appreciate everyone watching or listening out there. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.